Hey, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to Bellemont Zoo, where today we're building a restaurant and playground inspired by something gorgeous I found in Austria. We're also going to be checking out some major improvements to our elephant house. This is where we're going to be building today, just behind the Swan Lake. I think it's going to be one of the prettiest things that we've built in the zoo so far. Now, you're probably wondering what Der Heurige means. Well, a Heurige is an Austrian tavern. A lot of my favourite zoos in Europe have old-style pubs in them, like a sort of Bavarian-style pub or an old English pub. It works really nicely in this kind of setting. So this isn't based on anything in a zoo. It is something that I saw that's actually somewhere in Austria, in a little village, I think. And we're going to take it, build pretty much an exact replica of the first part of it, and then convert the rest of it so it makes a really nice and fairly sizable restaurant with lots of outdoor seating for the zoo. And we're also going to build a playground because every zoo needs a playground, and if you can have a playground, then really you need to have it within eyeshot of a restaurant or at least a cafe so that parents can sit down with a drink and keep an eye on their kids when they're on the playground. We're going to be creating 3 buildings today along with the playground, and this is the first of them. This is the part that's taken from the reference photo of the Heurige. I started building it out of just the basic plaster grid pieces, but it's a little big. I want to make this exactly the right size. So what I'm going to do is go over the grid pieces with plaster panels and basically make the exact same shape that we've already made, but at the right scale. So we can just use this as a guide, and then we'll place these plaster pieces in the shape that we've built, and then we can get everything to the correct size with a little guy there and the door as well. This door isn't going to stay, but this is probably the most realistically sized door in the game, so I'm just using that as a size reference. So we've got the plaster panels up to the top. We just need to fill those in now, and here we go. We've got the front of the building the exact right size. Next we'll put a roof on. As we do quite often, we're going to use 2 roofs for this. I really like the vertical wooden planks. They're flexi colour, so we can get that nice green in, which goes really well with the sort of mustardy yellow. And then we're going to use the Arctic roof underneath them because that's got a much more defined supports and more wood in it. And when you combine the 2 of them together, you get a nice rustic look to the front of it. And then we're going to build our own door. So this wall that you can see here with this door, I want this to be identical to the inspiration that I'm taking it from. So we're going to go all out with this. We're going to make a custom door, loads of foliage and stuff on the walls, custom signs, everything. Until we get it looking good. There's a window in the door. I'm going to use the one-way glass so that we don't basically have to build an entire interior for this building just because you can see into it. And if we hide this Indian door behind it, get this really nice wooden lattice effect, really brings to mind the sort of Austrian kind of architecture that we're going for here. We're also going to make a door handle just with a gate post and one of these little support pieces. And there we go, looking good. And we'll move on and get a window in. We want a beautiful white window with a green surround. So we're going to use this classic window, color it white, and then duplicate it so we can get a sill at the top. And then we'll put some wood pieces in as well, just to get the proper frame on it. And then we're going to copy it again and spin it round so we can get some glass in there as well without ruining the effect that we've just made. And with one more copy of it, I think there's about 5 windows here, we can now individually colour the wood on the outside to green, keeping the white in the middle and getting it exactly the way we want it. And then it's onto a sign. We're going to use this amazing Germanic font by Weiser, who's one of Planet Zoo's best blueprint makers, to create the sign for the front of the building, which will say Heurige. Big thank you as well to Drac, who we featured on this channel many times, for correcting my Austrian grammar here. So apparently, if you just use the word Heurige, it has an R on the end. If you were talking about one, it is Der Heurige without an R on the end. That's German/Austrian for you. I've got no idea why, but that is why there's an R here and there wasn't on the caption. And that font is amazing. This looks really good. There was a really cool old barrel style flower bed on the front of the building, so we're going to recreate that here using some metal pieces and a few brackets and our old friend the mud pillar to spin everything into place. Trying to get as much detail as possible into this. I'm using the one of the pole pieces to create a little circle on the metal there, and then we'll just select it, copy it, delete the middle bit, and then start spinning this round so we can build the little flower barrel. Well, I say little, it's pretty big, which is why I'm building this custom rather than using one of the barrels that we have in the game. We're going to take the second piece and then spin that upside down so we get a different texture. We need to do the same on the other side as well so that it all works when we start rotating. So we'll get that piece a little bit higher than the other one, and then we can start spinning the whole thing. You can see we get this really rustic looking barrel effect here. For once, we're actually going to leave the mud pillar in there rather than delete it because it'll actually work pretty well as soil. So once we've got that in the right place, We'll recolor the mud pillar to a more of a brown, sink it down a bit, and then we can squeeze some plants in here. We use all sorts of the meadow flowers, and we can start detailing the rest of the wall. There's a wooden beam nailed to the wall, which is there to provide support for various vines and climbing plants that cover the front of this building. So we'll get that in, and we'll start putting some decals in as well. We want a really weathered look to this building. Should have probably been there since 1850 when the zoo was built. And then we'll put the name in there as well. That's one of Christina's fonts. And then we can start covering it with plants. We're going to use the grapevines. There's a couple of pieces we don't have any grapes on them, which are really good for climbing plants like this. We'll mix in a few different kinds of vines as well, just to get a really varied look. And we're going to grow these across the front of the building and then up the sides as well. So we'll use some of the ivy. And then another thing I noticed in the reference photos was there was a really cute set of table and chairs out the front. And we don't have anything this small or in this exact style in the game, so I decided that we're going to make our own. So we're going to make a table using these wooden pieces, which is really easy to do with this beautiful, I think it's the Twilight wood here. Unfortunately, if the table is just a meter square, then the chairs will need to be half a meter at most, although they're going to look ridiculous, and there are hardly any half a meter pieces in the game, so the chairs are going to take some doing, but we'll get onto those in a second. We're going to use the same wooden pieces again to put some legs in for the table. I've built this whole thing on the world axis, so as I've explained before, if you place your first piece down, if you make sure you don't rotate that piece at all before you place it, then you know that you are building on the world axis. And then later on, if you need to do stuff like where we've spun the legs so they're diagonal, if you switch back to the world axis, you can still move them left and right and up and down in relation to the way that you're building, as well as moving them on the normal axis. You need to be able to switch between those a lot when you're building stuff like this, and that makes it much easier to do. We'll add in hinge number 2 to join the two pieces of wood together, and then copy across the final set of legs, and it's onto the chairs. We've got these tile pieces from the Africa pack that are the right size, and they're recolorable, and we can start to get a little chair together here using mainly these pieces. It's only the middle of the tile that's recolorable, but luckily because the other part is white, and we want these chairs to be white to match the table anyway, that's going to work absolutely fine. So we'll just make sure that the seat of the chair is in the right place, and then we can get this to the right size. And then we're going to drop in one of the cushions from the Europe pack. And then finally we're going to use various rope pieces which we can recolor to create the backs of the chairs, and then some of the lighting cables to make the legs of the chairs. We'll make a few variations of the chairs in different colors, set them around this table. Let's get one of them in a more natural wood style, so it's brown. Keep the two blue ones. We'll take a look at that in a second, and then we're going to take a look at the latest improvement to Bellemont Zoo at the elephant house. Our elephant habitat we built back in episode 3 suffers from the same problem as the savannah did, namely the elephants can't get to the habitat gate, so they can't use their enrichment items. So I asked my friend Robin Bird to give it a bit of a redesign, and it looks absolutely amazing. Not only has she redesigned it so that the door is big enough for the elephants to get inside, but she's put in a whole load of extra detailing. Check out the staff area here, and then the interior of the building for the elephants as well. It looks absolutely amazing. It's so much better than what we had before, but it still keeps the exact footprint, and all the stuff that we built is still there. It's just had more and more detail added to it. And because the elephants can now get to the habitat gate, it means they can actually use the enrichment items out in their habitat, like this feeder here. So a big improvement all round, and a big thank you to Robin Bird for doing this. She definitely went above and beyond my request for a larger door. Anyway, let's get back to the build and move on to the restaurant itself. What we want is a sizable courtyard so we can get lots of tables in for the guests. We're going to have two different types of tables, these actual dining tables that work with the restaurant, and then some of the picnic tables as well. And then we'll put the restaurant piece in and some food counters in here as well. That way we can cover up most of the restaurant and then have the food counters being a part of the building that the guests can actually get to as well. And then we can sort of see them ordering the stuff from the food counter, and we'll also see them sat at tables in the courtyard eating the food. This building's going to look very similar to the one that we just built, but a lot bigger. So I'm not going to show you most of the build on this because it's very similar to what we've just done, just on a different scale. Going to use some slightly different windows here. These are the Planet Zoo windows, but we can make these look like wood by recoloring them, and then we will cover everything with more plaster panels so we can actually recess those windows into the wall so they're not just stuck on the front. And then we're going to use these new tables, or newish tables from the Zookeeper's Animal Pack. They're a bit garish originally, but once you recolor them, they're actually a really good table there. That fits in really nicely. I want some curved text above this door, so we're going to use this huge sign, get the text in, and then use the trick where we add spaces before and after the letters to get the text as small as possible. And then we can just drop that into the wall, get it into exactly the right place, and recolor the letters, and that will fit in quite nicely actually. Now drop it down a bit, and we just need to recolor it so it matches that wall. There we go. For the floor, we're going to use the Oceanian weaved palm, or something I think it's called. If you get the colour right on this, it actually looks like an old wooden floor, which is really useful, so we can get that in there. And then we're going to use some of the mud panels to get a really rustic look in here. We use that to cover up some of the roof pieces that are sticking through. There's going to be a lot of details on these walls later. And then we can make the kind of serving bar where people go to get food and drink. Use some pretty simple wood panels to make this, and use 2 different shades of brown for the wood, just to make it look a bit more attractive. We can make a little door for the staff to get in and out, just with a couple of hinges and a few more bits of wood just to tie it all together. And then we're going to turn to something that we've used before back in San Bernardino Zoo, which is the coffee shop pack by Toves, which is one of the best blueprints on the workshop for my money. It is absolutely perfect for creating stuff like this. It's got some stone walls, a coffee machine, all sorts of things. We've got some great new vending machines, which Iben on Bro Nation just made, so we'll pop some of those in there as well. Got some optics made by PS Vision Gaming on the bar as well, so that our guests can have a beer while they sit down. That archway you can see there leads to the actual restaurant piece, so the guests will be able to go in there, but we're going to set it up like that would be a serving hatch for the staff rather than somewhere where the guests would actually order their food from. And there we go. Thanks to some good workshop items as well. It's starting to look really nice. We'll just drop some lights in and make some final improvements, a little bit of trim on the bottom of the bar, and that is the inside of the restaurant done. I just want to make a little improvement to the kitchen. This is a blueprint that I actually made back when we built the entrance. These beautiful tiles, which I made by combining many copies of the North African shopfront together and turning it upside down. I really like them, but they didn't suit the entrance, so I've been keeping it ever since, and I think they're going to be perfect for the walls of a kitchen. They've got that kind of classic tile look, so we're going to have a white copy and a black copy, and then we can drop these into the kitchen and just start to make this look a bit more realistic, like a modern kitchen. Really like how that looks. One more finishing touch is a little spike with receipts on it. I'm not sure what these are actually called in the trade. I've never worked in like a coffee shop or a restaurant or anything, but you always see this, the little kind of spike that they stick all the orders on, so they know which orders have been filled and which haven't. We're just going to make the receipts or the orders with some comma pieces, and then put one of the classic lampposts in to act as a spike, and there we go. That's the restaurant finished. Let's get on to the playground. We don't have a playground in the game, and building a realistic, complete playground from scratch would be a whole episode in itself. I did actually debate whether to devote an episode to building a playground, but I figured after a restaurant episode, another episode with no animals in it would probably be pushing it a bit. So instead I have called on the blueprint services again of the brilliant PS Vision Gaming, one of Planet Zoo's most intricate and brilliant builders. So we're going to drop their blueprint piece in, recolor it to suit the vibe that we've got going on around here, and then we're going to use the wood chippings path to create a realistic base for it to sit on, something nice and soft so the kids aren't going to hurt themselves if they fall off anything. This is such a great path texture. We've even used it in habitats before. We'll just go around to make a nice shape, and then we'll put the largest pieces of path in possible and join them all together so we get a seamless texture, and then we'll build a cute little log wall to surround it. We'll alternate the height of each log to give it a bit of variety, and once we've got a few of them in, we can group that and then just use this to surround the whole thing. And then we'll put a fence and some of our tree arrangements behind it to give us a nice backdrop for our playground. And that's the whole restaurant area done. Let's take a look at it. Oh, that really captures the vibe that I wanted here. I think it looks really cozy, even though it is big enough to realistically serve at least a part of this zoo. Zoos will tend to have maybe 3 or 4 sizable food places in them. I think Bellemont Zoo is probably just going to have this one because I don't want to devote 4 episodes to building restaurants. If this was the only restaurant in the zoo, it'd have to be quite a bit bigger than this, but I think this looks realistic for this area. I'm really happy with the finished result, especially as, with the exception of the playground, it's all actually used by the guests. this is where we started today, and this is where we are now. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you want us to build 4 different restaurants in this zoo? I'd imagine it's a no, but who knows, maybe there's more restaurant fans out there than I'm thinking. Thank you all so much for watching, as always. Thank you especially to those of you who've joined the Explorers Club, and I'll see you again next week for some more Planet Zoo. Bye.